Hello and welcome to my channel. I finally got around to changing my transmission oil. It went a lot smoother than I thought it would. Welcome back and thanks for being here. What do you mean you're changing the transmission oil? Isn't that a lifetime fluid? Well, you're right. There is not a drain interval specified in the owner's manual nor in the maintenance booklet, but I don't buy that it's a lifetime fluid. Sure, maybe it is lifetime to the original owner if that person sells or trades his cars every 3 to 5 years, or crashes their car, or just doesn't ever change the fluid and then they get rid of the car before the transmission fails. I'm still kind of a believer in changing that oil every 100,000 miles at the very least. I don't drive the car in high performance driving events or anything like that. I certainly don't drive at Autobahn speeds, and so I just stuck with the dealer stuff. So my challenge, I mentioned that I didn't think it was going to go very smoothly, either in my intro or definitely a couple videos ago. And I'd mentioned that because I knew that I was going to have to do the oil drain on the ground. I normally would take the car to a do-it-yourself shop where I can put the car on the lift and do this kind of work there. But these places are closed during the stay-at-home orders. Apparently, a shop like this is not considered essential, so it's closed. It's essential to me. But so I needed to do the job in the driveway. And doing it in the driveway isn't terribly difficult. I mean, you just jack up the car and put it on 4 jack stands. What I did instead is I backed the car onto a set of ramps. That took care of the back of the car, set the parking brake, of course, and then I jacked the car up to level it and then supported the front of the car with jack stands, and I did it that way. I also positioned the jack stands so that the car would be at a point to where the jack stands and the wheels, or the jack stands were in a level place, but then the driveway started to slope down, so it gave me a couple of extra inches to work under the car, and I think it worked well. And speaking of laying under the car, I thought that was going to be a total hassle to deal with these skid plates. And I say plural because I actually removed both of them. I'll explain that in a minute. When you're working standing on your feet, you're working overhead and you're moving things around, and you've got an arm over here and an arm over there, and it's not awful. It's just a little bit more cumbersome, and I thought for sure that this would be a pain in the neck on the ground. It turns out that when you're laying on the ground, it's easier to rest that skid plate on your chest, or maybe wiggle it with an elbow here, and then screw it up over there, and it was way easier, especially with the much longer tunnel brace. That plate I thought would be terrible, but it turns out that aligning the screw holes was easy because in the back it's held in place. It's got studs sticking out of the body, and then you put them on with nuts. And so the studs, once you get those lined up, the pan is aligned. And then it's a matter of I can hold this end with a hand and then hold the other end with my foot, because all I can do is just prop my foot up and hold it, and it's so easy. So if you're going to install the ECS skid plate, don't be afraid to do it on the ground. It's so easy on the ground. I couldn't believe it. So why? Well, I'll explain why I took off the tunnel brace in a minute. Let me just talk about the oil drain real quick. It's easy. It's an easy job. When you start off, always remove the fill plug first. The last thing you want is to pop out that drain plug, have all your oil come splashing out of there, and believe me, it does splash out and make a big mess. So get that pan up nice and close to your transmission, because it does not come out nice and smooth like the way the engine oil does. It just blows out and splatters everywhere. It's not pretty. Just be ready for it. Anyway, you don't want to get all that oil out and then discover that there's something wrong and you can't remove your fill plug. Maybe the head is stripped. Maybe it's just stuck, seized into place. I guess it could happen. Even worse, some of the Mark 7s don't even have a fill plug. And what if you didn't know that? If you didn't know that and you don't know how to get the oil into the transmission without a fill plug, now you've got a car with no transmission oil in it, and you can't drive it anywhere. So always make sure you know that you can get oil back in before you let the oil out. And then you just drain the oil. Once it's done draining, then stick the cap back in. And then I used the suction pump to load the oil up into the transmission. Of course, I didn't use it for suction, except to extract the oil from out of the bottles. And then I just grabbed the whole syringe and walk it over to the car. It started raining on me, so I had the oil in the shed. I'd suck it up into my syringe in the shed, and then I'd walk back out, slip up under the car, and then just push the oil into the transmission. It was great. I think it took 2.2-ish liters. I think these are liter bottles. I'll post a spec up here in the corner so you can check it out. So easy with the extraction tool. I will leave a link down in the description below so you can go check one out. They're not terribly expensive, but they're wonderfully handy. I use this one for my transmission oil, which of course is only once every 100,000 miles, but I also use it for the differential fluid, which is every 3 years. Some people insist on 30,000 miles, but I waited and did mine at 3 years, and it's been great for that as well. There's bound to be something else I can use it for. Just make sure you clean it out between different fluid types. So why did I take off the rear plate, the tunnel brace plate? Well, one of my missions, since I was going to have the plates off anyway, was I wanted to install some bonding straps. Bonding straps, you might recall that I have a ham radio installed in the car. Actually, I've got a couple of them. And now that I'm operating on the HF band, the exhaust pipe, because it is mounted on isolators to keep it from contacting the body of the car, it is electrically isolated from the body. The only place it contacts something that you could call a ground is up at the turbo where it bolts, because the turbo is affixed to the engine and the engine is bonded to the body of the car. From that turbo flange to the back of the car, there is no other connections to the body of the car. So that pipe is free to resonate at certain frequencies, and that's highly undesirable on the band, on the ham radio. It'll cause an interference issue, especially on receive. In order to combat that, you bond the exhaust to the body of the car at certain intervals. So that's what the bonding straps are for. You may have noticed that. You may have also noticed that my downpipe hanger is one of the insulators on it is blown out. It's reasonable. I've got 101,000 miles on the car and a whole lot more power coming out of the car, coming out of the engine. The engine probably rocks a little bit more than it would when it's stock. And so maybe that extra movement is there. I do have the replacement on hand. Here it is right here. Let me put them in front of my face so it doesn't focus. I think that's going to work. So this is the replacement piece. It is very easy to install. There's only two bolts. That's about all I can think of for this job. Let me know if you've got any questions, if there's something that I missed. I think I have covered everything. The skid plates, the draining of the oil. I didn't cover the size of the fittings verbally because I can't remember them all, but I will flash a screen up here real quick to show you the tools that I use for the job, and that's all I can think of on the subject. So I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to doing the next video for you. I hope you like what I'm doing. Subscribe if you do, and I will see you next time. Take care.